Hey guys, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Havila.
And by our powers combined, we are Wander with the Workmans, and we're finally back.
Exciting. You missed us, you know you did.
So we have been taking quite a bit of a break. For most of the summer months, we have actually been stationary in Bliss, Idaho, at her parents' place, my in-laws' place, however you want to phrase it.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Exactly, yeah. But being stationary hasn't led us to a heck of a lot of adventuring, so it's been kind of hard to come up with some content. But we are back out on the road. We've actually been out on the road for almost a month now, and we've been exploring the state of Montana. And today I thought we'd talk about our review of the main reason we went to Montana, and that's Glacier National Park.
Yes.
So these are just kind of some of our impressions and some of the things that we wanted to highlight about that trip, because it definitely is at least a one-time must-do, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so let's start with the drive. Getting there is probably the first step.
It helps.
And I have some things that I wanted to mention about the drive, some things to be aware of. And but first, I'd like to mention this is a beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous drive.
It really is. So when you go up, you're going to skirt around Flathead Lake.
Flathead Lake, there you go.
And we just happened to go in July, which is flathead cherry season and a lot of other berries. So I finally got Curtis to try blueberries, and he liked them. He didn't realize he liked them, but it's because he hadn't had them fresh off the bush before. So now that he's tried fresh blueberries, turns out he does like them after all.
Yeah, and apparently I'm a snob about it, because no, I don't like the dried in the muffin mix, or even the dried, canned, processed. It is definitely something, at least for me, that has to be fresh. And anything else is just not worth it. So, but yeah, I would almost say that just that drive itself is almost worth it. Flathead Lake is beautiful. Being there, especially during the cherry and blueberry season, it gives you a chance to meet a lot of interesting people, because you go into the shops. Some places do the you pick thing, so you can kind of have that adventure as well. And
make sure to bring cash with you, because a lot of the stands don't accept cards. So if you are looking to gorge yourself on pounds of fruit like we did, you're going to want to have cash.
Yes, definitely bring cash. So the drive just around Flathead Lake and up to the park is really, really nice. As the driver, the person who does the primary amount of driving, it's 2-lane highway, and so you are going to be paying a lot closer attention. It's windy as well, and so maybe split the driving duties a little bit so that you get a chance to look and watch. But it is beautiful even when you're paying attention to the road, because it is the road and the mountains they're close and kindred. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight about the drive, and these fall under the category of things to be aware of. Whatever you do not take the turnouts. And I know that sounds really weird. A lot of places, the turnouts are an integral part of mountain driving, so that you're not delaying a whole bunch of traffic. The big issue we ran into, especially when you get onto State Highway 200, which, if you look at a map, is basically the road that goes around the bottom of the park, the turnouts are not marked at all. Can't even say very well. They're not marked at all. And under normal circumstances, because the road is so windy, they tend to be hidden behind corners. So you don't have any way to prepare for them by slowing down. The other problem is that they seem to be designed for passenger vehicles. We went past quite a few that, a 25-foot long trailer with our long box extended cab truck, we're about 40 to 45 foot long. I haven't put an actual tape measure to it, but these turnouts are about 100 feet long.
Right.
And so even trying to take 30 miles an hour off to go from 30 to 0 in 100 feet is just unsafe. So just get comfortable with the fact that you're going to delay traffic and stay on the road and just drive until you're done driving. It would be a totally different story if those turnouts were marked, or if they were bigger, then you could prepare for them. But since they are the way they are, just get comfortable with the fact that you're going to delay traffic, because it's for your own safety. It's not worth going if you're not going to get there. Now, once we got there, we actually did not stay in the park.
No.
Just as a caveat to that, or a thing to be aware of, if you want to stay in the park, and it is 2019, you probably are looking at reserving a campsite in 2021. National parks are just becoming that popular, and people are thinking that far ahead. And so staying outside of the park is probably a pretty good option.
Yeah, I mean, 2021 actually isn't true, because national parks only open up 6 months before before you stay. But if you're wanting to stay in June, you would want to be there exactly 6 months before June at that day, and you're reserving that day, because it's like a sold out concert. Everybody's gonna be rushing onto the site right as soon as those dates come open, because it's just so crowded. So yeah, you definitely, I guess the point is you have to be really well prepared and plan ahead, and it doesn't tend to be our specialty, so.
Right, yeah, and and just our RV lifestyle leads us to freestyling,
Yes.
I guess. But we did know, and it was part of a family vacation, and so we had to make some extra plans, and my sister and my brother, my sister, your sister-in-law, and our brother-in-law.
Yes.
I'll draw you a family tree later. We were helped us be ahead on planning, but we ended up still having to stay in a National Forest Service campground outside of the park, and we stayed at Devil's Creek Campground. And in terms of campgrounds, this was kind of it was a cool campground.
It was.
Most of the sites were pretty near level.
Yep.
The loop and the access for somebody our length, some of the sites were a little bit harder to get into. Others were exceptionally easy to get into, so there is a variety. We camped next to pop-up and teardrop trailers and Class A's. And so it can accommodate all sizes of rigs. And in terms of amenities, they had some pretty good amenities for being a primitive campsite.
Yeah, not bad. There were water spouts between every other campsite, so there was basically one water spout for every 2 sites. So you just had to go take your bucket down, fill it up, put it into your tank. There were also 2 vault toilets that were kept immaculately clean, and it wasn't a real big site. There was probably only 20 places altogether, so sharing 2 vault toilets was not a problem at all. I thought the real problem actually was internet. I'm sure if you spend any time researching Glacier, you will find that internet is virtually non-existent up there, and it certainly is non-existent at Devil's Campground. We have a booster. We have AT&T and Verizon. We had 0 internet. Just don't even fool yourself into thinking that maybe you'll find something. It's not. It doesn't exist.
I think we need a more friendly, politically correct term for that. I think we should call it digitally pristine. Because there was nothing. Nothing. Now, in terms of finding service, if you have to find service, because we were there for 7 days, which means we basically had to find a way to work. You can find some cell service at West Glacier or at East Glacier. Some of that has to do with broadband, bandwidth usage, the weather. It is rather fickle. It's either there or it's not. Getting farther afield, just outside of West Glacier, is a little town called Coram, and it had better internet service, but even farther down the road, not a whole lot of distance down the road from West Glacier, is Hungry Horse, Montana. And that's probably the first place from Glacier that you're going to find consistent signal. It's not screaming, blazing fast signal, but it is at least consistent.
Yeah, because we thought, we found internet at a couple of the gift shops and things like that, at a visitor center. We found internet at a restaurant one time. We got to Coram, we found internet outside of the grocery store. We're like, we're good to go. But the next time we tried to use it, it was gone. Or it would just die partway through using it as we were trying to use it. And so it wasn't until we got to Hungry Horse that it was consistent, that you could count on it, that it was there every time. And so if you were traveling to Glacier and you need internet, just assume that you're going to have to drive to Hungry Horse in order to find any.
You did discover, at least in Coram, you discovered a nifty little trick that helped a little bit.
Actually, that was outside of the visitor center in Glacier.
Somewhere.
West Glacier, yes.
Along this trip, she discovered this cool little trick.
I don't know really why, but I thought, we have a little hot spots, and an antenna is basically a big piece of metal. And I thought, well, we've got our truck. Let's see what happens. And so I leaned down and put the hotspot on top of the hood of the truck, and man, it picked right up. It went from like, oh, I don't know, to, oh, it would work. And as soon as I took it back off of the metal and set it down off the hood of the truck and set it down on my lap, gone again. And I did it multiple times just to test, like, is this kind of a weird glitch or something? No. So if you want to use your vehicle as a giant antenna, it actually does a fairly good job. I was really impressed with myself for even thinking of it. So,
Now, the other thing to mention about Devil's Creek Campground is Sandy. That's the camp host. Mm-hmm. And Sandy was absolutely wonderful. We had a bit of a scheduling issue. We got there ahead of my sister and our brother-in-law. And they had made the reservations, but they had made reservations for us ahead of time so that we could have a longer stay in that campground. But when we got there, man, the reservation sheets were all over the place. They had us in about 4 different sites over. I mean, they had reservations for days that we had missed, mm-hmm. And then they didn't have reservations for the first day we were going to be there, and then reservations after. It was just all over the place. And Sandy explained that the company that manages these Forest Service campgrounds has changed reservation programs that they use mm-hmm. through their website, and so there's some difficulty there. So hopefully the bugs are getting worked out of that system and it won't be a problem going forward. However, it was a problem for us.
Yes.
But Sandy was spectacular in just the mental gymnastics that she did to find us various open. We had to move a couple of times while we were there, but she was able to find us open spots inside the campground to accommodate us for the stay we had thought we had planned.
Yeah.
And so we were able to stay there for the time we had scheduled ourselves to be there, and it's all because Sandy was willing to take the time and work through it. She could have easily have just said, we don't have a reservation for you, go find someplace else.
Right.
But she worked diligently to figure out how to make it work and to give us as few moves as possible. I mean, in all reality, we probably could have ended up moving
virtually every night.
just about every night. But we only had to move twice inside the campground, and that was because, again, Sandy worked so hard to make sure that our stay was as pleasant as possible. And she's the one, her and her husband are the ones that are responsible for the vault toilets being shiny. They kind of glare a little bit at you when you walk in. They're that clean. So Sandy and her husband, wonderful campground host, just absolutely wonderful, and that really did add a whole different dimension and level to our stay at Devil's Creek. That being said, let's talk about the thing to be aware of with Devil's Creek. It is a great campground, but it is quite possibly the worst choice you can make for accessing the park. The reason being is that if you envision the bottom of Glacier National Park, it makes kind of a U. That U is lined by Highway 200, and it is almost exactly equidistant to West Glacier and East Glacier. And so it's about a 35-mile drive to either of the main gates to get into the national park. So in terms of accessing the park, this is probably not the campground you want to shoot for. If you're just there to enjoy the Montana wilderness, Bear Creek was great fishing, and it's right there next to the campsite. Has a lot going for it, but if your purpose is to access Glacier National Park, this is probably the worst choice because it is equally far away from everything as it could be.
Right, yes. I do think there's probably a reason why it was the only one that was open when we finally got around to making reservations. That should be a hint.
Yeah, probably. So those are the ancillary things to getting to and being around Glacier National Park. Now let's talk about the park itself.
Right.
Okay, so the first thing I want to mention about Glacier National Park was I got suckered in by the internet. Because everything on the internet is true, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I and my brother-in-law had talked about is that there was a rumor or reports that the wait at the front gate, and we went through West Glacier, the West Glacier Gate, was that the wait there was insane. That it was incredibly popular. And so we went ahead a day ahead of the rest of our group and bought our America the Beautiful interagency pass, thinking at least then we wouldn't be stuck in line with other members of our party in a different vehicle. We were in line for maybe 5 minutes total, and that includes getting there, waiting, and buying the pass.
Yeah. Way overhyped. It went smooth as could be. They had you fill out a quick little form and you were on your way. So I don't know if they had some sort of glitch, previously, and they've smoothed that out, or if people just like to complain. I have no idea, but really not a big deal at all.
And we went into the park, I think 4 times,
something like
four
that.
separate times, and the longest we had to wait was maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and that was because a construction crew that was going to do some work inside the park was trying to get through the gate. And when you get to the gate, here's another thing to keep in mind. There are 3 lanes, 2 for regular passenger vehicles and 1 for tall vehicles. And the clearance on the passenger vehicle is 7 foot. And so I don't know how it happened, but this construction crew pulled up and tried to go through the passenger gate, even though, they were easily twice as tall as the gate, and it should have been obvious they needed to go around. And so there was some jockeying to get people to back up, to give them room so that they could get into the right lane. But even then, less than 10 minutes from pulling up and coming to a stop in the line to actually accessing the park itself. The other thing I liked about that was from West Glacier Gate, was that the Apgar Visitor Center, one of 2 main visitor centers throughout the park, is only a mile down the road.
Right.
Comparing it to like Yellowstone, there's a slightly significant drive from the gate to, say, the Yellowstone Visitor Center, or the Old Faithful Visitor Center. Apgar was right there.
Yeah.
And then Apgar Village is only like a quarter of a mile down the road from that. And so the main amenities to get you kind of started and primed for the trip of like, what are we going to see? Where are we going to go? Let's get our stickers and our patches and that kind of thing, was right there at the front of the park.
Yep.
And so that was really nice.
It was really nice. The visitors, not the visitor center, this village, it tended to be pretty busy, and so we actually had to park a bit down the road both times and walk to it. But there's a walking path that goes along the road, and it was really pleasant, so didn't mind it at all. It was good to get out and stretch your legs. Yeah,
and in terms of the villages itself, there's West Glacier Village. So there's West Glacier, Montana, West Glacier Village, and then there's Apgar Village, all kind of clustered in that same area. West Glacier, Montana is the actual little town. It's got a gas station, a couple of restaurants, some gift shops. Nice little border town to a national park. West Glacier Village is kind of what you think of in terms of that, like, I guess, visiting a national park amenities kind of thing. That's where the formal dining room cafe is with all the international servers, a lot of the main gift shops and that kind of thing. And then there's Apgar Village, which is kind of a continuation. It's just down the road, and it's kind of a continuation of that thing. There's a fly shop, an art gallery, an ice cream stand. And not to get too far down the road of comparing it to Yellowstone National Park, but again, it was really nice because it wasn't terribly busy. There were people there. The parking was difficult. But at the same time, like, we bought ice cream, and we were only in line for a couple of minutes. There was one person in front of us for ice cream. You weren't shuffling through shoulder to shoulder through the gift shops. You had room to kind of spread out and look around and that kind of thing. So it was...
Yeah, if the parking was better, you wouldn't have felt crowded at all. That's actually where the hang-up was just finding a place to put your vehicle. And once you got out of your vehicle, you didn't feel crowded.
And that's kind of the theme for Glacier National Park altogether, is that in terms of the size of facilities, not talking about square acreage, but just the size of the facilities themselves, it is much smaller than Teton or Yellowstone or Yosemite. And so
absolutely,
there are parking issues. However, one thing that I really appreciated from the staff there at Glacier was they have a very good system of signs telling you the Logan Pass Visitor Center parking lot is full, or Apgar Village is full, Alpine Campground is full, that kind of thing. And it's right there up front, so you're not driving all the way into the park to find out you can't park anywhere.
Yeah.
You can kind of use those signs to tailor your trip and go, hey, it's busy at Logan, let's go to Apgar and wait it out, or whatever. And they have big display screens in the visitor center over the main counters that almost like a airport terminal.
Right, yeah.
The detail of what's full, what's not full, that kind of thing. And so I thought they did a really great job of spreading that information around.
Right, so that you weren't wasting your time when there wasn't any chance of you actually being able to park and go inside and look somewhere. So, yeah.
McDonald Lake was a great feature. We actually spent a little bit of time just sitting around McDonald Lake. That one, again, be prepared for the traffic thing, because the way to access that is there's just multiple turnouts along the banks of McDonald Lake and the river that leads into it. And you just kind of have to take them catch as catch can. You know, when you see a turnout, take a turnout. And the great thing about McDonald is there isn't a bad view around it at all. So you don't have to find a particular turnout and be like, this is the great view. No, they're all great.
They are, yeah.
Also, wildlife.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to confess to being a little bit of a local boy in that I love Yellowstone, but I'm used to Yellowstone. And so bison, elk, and deer, I've seen them. So it was really neat to see some of the wildlife that we saw there.
Yeah.
So let's start with the Bighorn Sheep at Logan Pass Visitor Center. I was so certain that somebody was going to end up on Facebook because they got charged by this guy. He was maybe 7 or 8 feet away from people, and he had the big curl. Was kept working on curl number 2, just chewing on the grass like he owned the place. So it was really neat to be able to get that close.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, people were so good about not reacting and screaming and that sort of thing that I didn't even realize what was going on, because there was kind of a ring around him, and I was focused on getting over to the water refilling station, which happened to be pretty close to this guy. I literally didn't realize he was there until somebody started to walk away, and I'm like, hold on a moment here, what is that? Oh my, that's a giant bighorn sheep. So yeah. Anyway, he was pretty calm, and the people around him were really good about not, snapping their fingers or trying to touch him, that sort of thing.
The other nice thing about coming in July is that we're kind of July and August are really good times for young animals to still be with their mothers. They haven't been weaned, they haven't been sent off into the real world. So we came around the corner, and blocking one lane of traffic was a mountain goat, a female mountain goat, and her baby.
Oh, the cutest baby you ever seen in your whole life.
Trust me, and here's a picture for you. But yes, that was really cool to be able to see that. Even and just wildlife in Montana, as we've been driving along, we have seen fawns, deer fawn, they're still in spot. The male deer are in velvet, which is always a neat thing to see. But yeah, we were able
lots of pronghorns.
Lots of pronghorn.
Lots of rabbits.
lots of varmints in general. But I got a bucket list check off. And to kind of tell you this little story, every time I've ever seen a grizzly bear, it's because I've been in Yellowstone National Park and gotten stuck behind the guys with the National Geographic lenses on their cameras, and they're always saying, oh yeah, 37 miles that direction, that spot next to that bush is a grizzly bear. And you're like, good, I'll take your word for it. We actually got to see a grizzly bear close enough to go, yes, that is a grizzly bear in the wild. And so that's kind of been a bucket list, because I've seen them in zoos. Like I said, I've seen the spot in the distance, but I personally had never seen a grizzly bear close enough in the wild to say, yes, that is actually a grizzly bear. Pretty nice looking female, a nice sow. She was just wandering around. Looked like there were some berry bushes around her, so I'm sure she was just having lunch. And so it was neat to see that. And like I said, bucket list on my animal bucket list of wildlife to see.
Yeah.
One of the major features of Glacier National Park is, of course, the Going to the Sun Road.
Yes.
And that's quite a trip.
Yup, that's quite a trip.
It is definitely well worth doing.
Yes.
And being able to say you've done it. So it is definitely worth doing. And really, if you're able to pay attention to, to the scenery, or if you're able or willing to turn off quite frequently, stunning. Mm-hmm. It is really stunning. It is narrow, and it is a heck of a climb. So as a drive, yeah, driving, I can say I've done it. And it took us quite a while with turnoffs and going to the Logan Pass Visitor Center and that kind of thing. And so I would recommend the shuttle.
Yeah.
That's another thing that Glacier is really good about. They have a very nice shuttle system that includes a trip through on the Going to the Sun Road. Really, let somebody else do the driving. They actually have two different types of shuttles there. There is the get on a bus with air conditioning, and they'll drive you from here to Logan Pass. But there's also the curated vintage buses with the old style bus that's been rebuilt. They roll away the top so you can stand up and take pictures. The driver is giving a narration the entire time. They stop frequently for you to take pictures and that kind of thing. That is a bit of an extra fee. There's a fee for the shuttle service, but then there's also an extra fee. And you are committing 6 to 8 hours round trip to do that. But it is basically the entirety of the U.S. side of the park that is developed, and you don't have to do the driving.
Right, yes. Because when you hear a 2-lane road, you think, okay, well, each car's got their own lane to be in, and that's technically true. But on either side of those lanes, out one side is a rock cliff that you can put your hand out, here's the window, and now you're touching the rock cliff. There you go. It's like this far away from your vehicle. And then on the other side is the drop off to go down, and there's railings and whatever, but you take a little bit too far off and you're going down the side of a mountain and you're dead. So it is incredibly tight. And I know my sister-in-law, his sister, was quite terrified because there were some tall, some steep inclines and in some tight corners, and she was pretty sure she was going to die.
The roadkill is really interesting on the Going to the Sun Road, because it's not dead animals, it's dead mirrors where people have gotten too close. And you can, every once in a while, you will see pieces of car mirror on the road. Definitely not for longer vehicles.
Right.
Maybe this is a bit contentious, but there was at one point where we passed someone who had one of those rental RV America RVs that they had taken up and were taking at that point down the Going to the Sun Road, and it was, I'm not kidding you, this close to everyone they passed. And so find a way to not take your RV up the Going to the Sun Road. Take your tow vehicle, take your toad, take the shuttle. Don't take the big rig up that road. Once you get to the top is the Logan Pass Visitor Center. We didn't spend as much time as we could have there. One of the nice things about Logan Pass is they have a very well-developed trail system. So once you're there, you can do quite a bit of hiking, either on just nicely maintained trails or even boardwalk trails like you would see around geysers in Yellowstone. They've emulated that same pathway system. And so you get to see a lot. It takes you can see down into the valley. It's really a neat place to stop. I wish we had more time to have done that kind of thing.
Yeah, we pushed pretty hard to get up there, and then there was just a lot of, things going on with the family, and so we didn't spend quite as much time out just hiking in the wilderness as I probably would have preferred.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we went to the gift shops.
Yes.
Look.
Yes. I'm wearing our Glacier gear. It's probably backwards because we've got the camera inverted. But we did make sure to get souvenirs.
The important stuff.
Let's go into the things to be aware of. The big thing to be aware of right now, it is 2019, and there is massive road construction on the east side of the park.
Yes.
And when I say massive, they are rerouting the entire roadway.
Yes.
And so we had the thought of, let's start at West Glacier, go over the top, come out through East Glacier, and just make the entire circuit. Had we known that construction was there, and just from paying attention to other road construction, I'm guessing that 2021 is not a hyperbolic.
Yeah, because what they're doing is they're taking the road, which is very, very curvy, and they're basically straightening it out. So they are cutting through mountains and flattening out the road so that you don't have as many curves. So, I mean, we're talking some really major stuff. And so we were going through
we had pilot cars.
Craziness.
There were points where they were using pilot cars.
Yes.
To get one-way traffic through effectively. And so that, just like I said, from noticing other road construction projects and some of my family working in that business, I would guess that is at least a 2-year project, if not more.
Yeah.
And so if you're watching this 2019 plus 2, so 2021 at least, call Montana Department of Transportation and find out if that is still going on, because that would drastically have changed the way we approached the Going to the Sun Road. We would have turned around at Logan Pass and come back down to the West Gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah.
So overall, what was your impression?
Well, so I grew up going to Glacier National Park as a child. My mother graduated from Missoula high school, and so that was in her backyard growing up and what she really loved to go to. So where us kids, we all went to Glacier National Park on family vacations. And so I had this image of how Glacier National Park was, and then when we got there I realized that it has changed a lot. I think because Yellowstone has gotten so busy. Yellowstone is so insanely busy because they bring in huge tour buses, just bus after bus after bus after bus, and they just it's millions of people and they're all elbowing each other, and it's really rough. So there's kind of been a spillover of, well, okay, we're not going to see any geysers, but we're still going to be able to see really beautiful mountains, so let's go to Glacier instead. And the Tetons National Park, I've heard, has also been that way. I haven't personally been to Tetons yet, so I can't say for sure, but anyway, this has been kind of a thing that's been happening, is that the knockoff effect is that these other nearby national parks are getting just swamped with people, and that's definitely been my experience in terms of Glacier, because as a kid I remember playing by the lake and, you know, gorgeous mountain views, and it was peaceful and it was serene, it was calm and it was quiet, and this time it was like, whoa, where'd all these people come from? You know, and it wasn't bad, it just was very different from what I remember as a kid. And so I think my recommendation would be to go during the shoulder season if you can, either earlier in the spring or later in the fall. If you could time it right and be able to go on Going to the Sun Road. They won't allow you to go up there if there's been any snow, and that's honestly a very good thing. You do not want to be on this road if there's snowpack on the road, I promise you. But if you're able to go there when there hasn't been any snow during the shoulder season, I think that it would help with the crowds. But I mean, I'm glad that we went, and I would like to go back during the shoulder season and see if we couldn't spend more time exploring and less time, I don't know, just around a lot of other people.
Yeah, the shoulder season thing is a great tip. While we were in the area, one of the Missoula radio stations, when we were in Missoula, actually ran a news story that pointed out that the July attendance numbers for Yellowstone was equal to Glacier National Park's annual attendance. So they are definitely becoming more and more popular, and for very good reason. But the parks are becoming much more crowded, so if you can hit a shoulder season date, definitely. This is the part of the video where I get myself in trouble. Leading up to this trip, having never been to Glacier, it seemed like there are two types of people in the world. There are those of us who have never been to Glacier, and then there are those who have been to Glacier and they all have the reaction. Like, for some reason, Glacier National Park, in just about everyone we talk to, creates euphoric joy.
It's gorgeous.
I mean, it's great.
If you could.
And so this is where I'm going to get myself in trouble, is that I'm going to say I liked Glacier National Park. I enjoyed it. It is beautiful. I don't squee over it. I wonder if going back to the topic of shoulder season, I wonder if some of that has to do with the crowding. Because again, one thing that all these people that have in common, talking to you, talking to our other brother-in-law and some other relatives, as well as just people in general, they all kind of have that reaction based on going as a child. They're about our age, and they all have that reaction based on their experience as a child.
Yeah.
In Glacier. And so I know I'm going to offend the group by saying I liked it and not getting overjoyed by it, but I think there is a huge difference that comes with the amount of popularity there. But overall, it is definitely worth doing. It is. It's, and I would do it again, like we've said before, to spend some more time, experience some things that we didn't get a chance to experience, because it is a really cool place. And I think we'd probably do things a little bit differently. We'd at least stay closer to one of the gates, if not inside the park if we could. You know, that kind of thing. Plan on being able to hike at Logan Pass, those kinds of things. So yeah, Glacier, great experience. It is definitely worth saying you've done it, checking it off your list at the very least, but I also think it's well worth a deep explore.
Yeah.
And that's something that I would like to do in the future. But yes, I like Glacier National Park.
I know where you sleep at night.
So you guys, if you have a great Glacier experience, please leave them in the comments below. If you have other tips for making Glacier an excellent trip, leave those in the comments below so that we can share them with everybody. In the meantime, if you're glad to see us back and if you like what we're doing, make sure to do all those YouTube-y things. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Turn on the notification bell so when we do post new videos, you are told about that. Give this a thumbs up if you really liked it. And share it with your friends, because obviously a lot of people are going to Glacier National Park.
A lot.
So give them a little heads up on some information they can use when they get here. In the meantime, you guys, catch you down the road.
Bye.